Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Normally, you would say 'tis the season to be merry, but with the crime spree going on for a lot of people, it's been the season to be buried. Christmas was more like the Christ Massacre. The criminals and the lawless thugs were busy all the day long. Gives brand new meaning to the phrase surviving Christmas. This year, Christmas fell on a Sunday, and it was a bloody Sunday indeed. There was a coast-to-coast kill fest going on. Oh, you didn't hear about it? Gee, that's probably because it didn't fit the white media narrative. The carnage began in Quarrier, West Virginia, just before 8 o'clock a.m. on Christmas morning. An altercation had broken out between siblings at a home, and somewhere in the middle of this fracas, one of the siblings picked up a gun, allegedly to try to break up the fight by firing shots inside the house. He wound up shooting 26-year-old Shane Bush, who died at the scene. The person who shot Shane Bush was his own brother. No charges have been filed by the police. The name of the assailant hasn't been released either, and according to white media reports, the sheriff's department has said they're not going to release the shooter's name unless he's charged. Yeah, that sounds just about right now, don't it? And speaking of criminals wildly shooting at people, on the other side of the country in Murrieta, California, at 8 o'clock a.m., a man was running around a neighborhood with 2 semi-automatic firearms. This character chose to celebrate Christmas Day by shooting at several houses in the area, putting bullets through windows of occupied dwellings and into walls. The Murrieta Police Department responded to numerous 911 calls about this deranged individual. They closed off the area, called in a SWAT team, and advised the residents to remain in their homes. A standoff ensued with the suspect hiding in his house. After several hours of negotiations between the shooter and the police, he surrendered. Police have identified the shooter as 48-year-old David Carr. He was arrested and charged with felony assault with a semi-automatic weapon and shooting into an inhabited dwelling. His bail was set at $1 million. Reports are that he was suffering a mental health crisis. Well, good thing for him that he wasn't a black motorist or a black pedestrian or just black period, because he would have been killed. Next, Gilbert, Arizona, 4:30 p.m. Gilbert police responded to a call about a vehicle that had backed into a residence. At the scene, police found an 80-year-old man inside a car. He had been shot multiple times. They tried to administer first aid, but the victim was declared dead at the scene. Police made contact with a male relative of the victim who was coming out of a nearby home. His name is Michael Kaiser. The man who had been shot was Michael's stepfather. Apparently, Michael had come home from a family dinner and shot his stepfather. The cops didn't arrest him until the next day, and of course they claim they haven't identified a motive. He's being held on $1 million bond too. Next, Paducah, Kentucky, 6:46 p.m. Police were called to an office building in response to a report that someone had been shot. When they arrived, they found evidence that a fight had taken place. There were 2 men at the scene, both of them injured. The first was 50-year-old Bobby Tabor. He had been shot. He was rushed to a hospital but was declared dead. The other man was 43-year-old John Summerfield. He had also sustained injuries and was taken to the hospital. After being treated, Summerfield was taken in for questioning and arrested. According to detectives, the 2 men had gotten into a fight and Summerfield shot Tabor. Summerfield was charged with murder in addition to 2 counts of unlawful transaction with a minor for reportedly providing alcohol to 2 teenagers who were at the scene. The next incident took place in Hamilton Township, New Jersey. Last Sunday night, at the same time you law-abiding citizens were listening to my Christmas night address, the criminals were still busy. Rather than making merry, they were making mayhem. At 10:19 p.m. on Christmas night, officers from Hamilton Township Police responded to a call from the home on the 5200 block of Mays Landing Summers Point Road. Try saying that 5 times fast. They were responding to a report of an injured man. Officers entered the home, and in the bedroom they found David B. Wigglesworth with a single gunshot wound. A handgun was near his body. He was pronounced dead at the scene. David's wife, Mary Lou Wigglesworth, was there. She was the one who had called the police. She claimed that she and her husband had been in a fight, and she confessed to shooting him. She was arrested and booked into the Atlantic City Jail. Her lawyers are already claiming that she's a victim of domestic violence and that her now dead husband had attacked her that night and on prior occasions. On a side note, David Wigglesworth had been president of the planning board in Hamilton Township and had unsuccessfully run as a Republican for the Township Committee in 2012. The Hamilton Township Republicans shared a tribute to him on their Facebook page. For some reason, the same Republicans who are so keen to talk about the crime wave across the country didn't have anything to say at all about the crime that had touched them right there in Hamilton Township. Go figure. But there's plenty of others from Santa's naughty list that I could name, from another man who was firing guns at people in Texas to a bizarre incident involving a murder-suicide of a Latino couple at a Jehovah's Witness temple. But I'm trying to stick to the ones where there's mugshots provided. In a lot of these cases, there's not, and as we saw with the case of Mr. Bush, when you look at the census data about these places, it becomes clear why the cops are keeping this under wraps. These are the crimes that you won't hear about from the white media. Christmas was a bloody Sunday indeed, but the white media did their job and made sure to focus on the weather or on something else. Oh, and for dishonorable mention, there's this little gem out of Atlanta. It didn't happen on Christmas, but it's still worth mentioning.
New tonight, a man police call a serial burglar is behind bars.
Atlanta police tell us an officer just happened to spot the man walking down the street in Midtown Atlanta and knew exactly who he was.
Police, stop. Red sweater.
APD says the officer recognized Leslie Cook from surveillance video in burglaries across Midtown Atlanta.
You got some identification, get your hands out your pocket.
But this time, when the officer tried to stop him, he put his bag down and ran. But he didn't get far. Police say they caught him soon after. They say it's Cook in these videos, where he smashed a bar door to steal liquor last month and did the same thing at a bar across the street the very next day and earlier this month. They say he's been arrested 32 times.
And after this latest arrest, he's been charged with 8 more burglaries, all in the span of just 1 month.
Did you get that? This guy has been arrested 32 times for crimes including robbery, obstruction, theft, parole, probation violations, and more than 30 previous burglary charges. Well, now we can add 8 more counts of burglary to his rap sheet. He must be going for a world record or something. This guy is a one-man crime wave, but they just kept letting him back out over and over again. And while he's familiar to the police, my question is, why isn't he equally familiar to the people of Atlanta? You see, if this guy had been black, they would have been pointing out, oh my God, revolving door justice, the system is broken, etc., etc. Oh, this guy 32 times. They would have already had this guy's face plastered everywhere. That is, if he had been black. The smallest little violation, they would have had him out there and they would have been pointing out again and again, how come we can't keep this guy locked up? But that didn't happen in this case, and we all know why. This is why there's so much crime. The authorities know exactly who the criminals are and they just keep letting them back out because there's certain people who have genetic immunity from the law. Meanwhile, there's black people locked up for a first offense, many of them on false charges. Forget about 32 prior arrests, black defendants wouldn't have made it past the first 3. So Christmas this year was its usual bloody affair, just like the other 364 days of the year, but the difference is I told you about the crimes, because otherwise the white media would be trying to focus you on to other incidents and push the phony racist narrative that, well, there's something wrong with these urban areas. You certainly wouldn't have these kind of incidents going on in the suburbs or in these rural areas. The people just behave better out there. That is, until you actually look at it. So since they racially curate the news so as to fit their anti-black narrative, it falls to the black media to make sure you hear about the other 85% of the day's events. I guess it just goes to show the weather isn't the only thing that's cold on December 25th. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. Quee, Mark Anderson, Vincent Harper, King Edwards, and Dondi Waddell. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.